educated.
I'll take that.
By Dr. Brian Detlor, who is here from McMaster University. And today he's going to be talking about helping libraries conduct research. And we look very much forward to what he has to say. So please take the floor.
Thank you for that kind introduction. I'm Brian Detlor. And thank you, Heidi, for inviting me to your seminar series. It's great to be here. The impetus of my visit here is my current role at McMaster University. I'm officially the faculty member in residence at the University Library. So I am, in my real life, an associate professor at the School of Business, but because I've done extensive research in libraries and my background is from iSchool in terms of my master's and PhD, that the library at McMaster kindly invited me to stay and live with them for 1 year. So I'm here to report my intern progress so far. So I started this role in July 1st. So I'm almost near the halfway mark. And so this opportunity also gave me the means to put my thoughts to pen, craft some slides, and also it's leading me to eventually writing a paper on my reflections of being a faculty member in residence. So this is the first iteration of my ideas. So the purpose of today's talk is threefold. First, I want to explain why people do research on libraries, and particularly why librarians conduct research themselves in libraries. And then spend a bit of time reflecting upon librarians' experiences conducting that research, the factors that enable them to do research, and factors that prohibit or are barriers to conducting research. And we'll touch base on some educational initiatives underway, particularly some summer workshops that are going on in the States and in Canada to help academic librarians get more research skills and conduct research in their workplaces. And then I'm going to reflect on my primary purpose here, my role as a faculty member in residence. I want to tell you about the progress I've made to date, some of the projects I'm working on, the challenges I've encountered, and also the successes. So that's basically what I'll be talking to you about. So about me, as I mentioned, I'm an associate professor of information systems. So prior to my life as an academic, I was a computer guy, programmer, analyst, systems analyst, database designer, undergraduate degree in computer science. And I worked for many years in different industries, mainly for the corporate world, energy sector, food sector, banking sector. I got tired of all that and joined the iSchool in Toronto and did my master's and PhD at the iSchool in Toronto. And as I mentioned, I'm the faculty member of residence currently at McMaster University Library. In terms of my research, because everyone asks me what type of research I do an eclectic amount of research, I think. But basically, the research that I do lies at the intersection of three areas: users, information systems, and information. So where those three elements intersect, that's what I'm really interested in. Not just the technical aspects of information systems, but how users use those systems in an applied context. In terms of library research, I first started doing work on academic libraries and corporate libraries when I was doing my PhD at U of T. The first study I did at McMaster was on the efficacy of academic library websites, because I was really annoyed as a user why library websites were not well designed. So I did a study on that. Most recently, I've been working with Heidi Julian and one of my PhD students who's now a professor at Lakehead, Dr. Alexander Serenko, on a study of how academic librarians give information literacy instructions in business schools. We're now embarking on a new area of research. We have more academics in our project team from Scotland, Australia, and the U.S. And that's going to be about digital literacy skills and how academic libraries can help promote those skills in both faculty and students. So that's the kind of work that I'm interested in terms of libraries. So in today's presentation, it's going to be three parts, and basically these line up to what I told you earlier about the purposes of this talk. A little bit about why we conduct research on libraries, then librarians' experiences conducting that research, and then my own reflections and experience as a faculty member in residence. So to start off, this is the question I get: why do I, as a professor in a business school, study libraries? And my answer is always, well, why do you study the organizations that you study? We have professors in my school that study the health sector, government sector, small, medium enterprises. And I say, I just study a particular type of organization, and they happen to be libraries. And if you actually look at libraries, they're quite exciting and fascinating things to research, because there's a lot going on in libraries. They're undergoing a paradigm shift. You know, they're not only allowing access to information, they're also creating it, storing it, organizing it. They have a rich history dating back to the times of Egypt, early Egypt, 2400 BC, papyrus scrolls, and the history of the U.S. is largely can be affiliated with the establishment of libraries, the social causes. So there's a rich history throughout the world of libraries, and there's so much going on, and there's so many forces at play. For example, technology, the changes of the internet. The internet is changing everything in society, and libraries especially, how it's basically raised awareness of the importance of information in society and the roles that information professionals have in organizing it and providing mechanisms for people to retrieve it. There's fiscal pressures. Libraries are undergoing budget constraints. How do they deal with that? There's legal and political issues, privacy, copyright. There's so many areas of interest that pertain to this type of organization that I think it warrants conducting research on. And the research on libraries is important. I have a quote here from Powell et al., which basically summarizes an idea that you can't make informed decisions without doing some sort of research. So it's very imperative that librarians and practitioners, they call them here professional practitioners, actually read the research literature and conduct research to inform them to make the right decisions going forward in terms of evidence-based practice. So who does research on libraries? Well, primarily it's academics, those in LIS schools, but they're not alone. I'm from a business school and I do research on libraries, so it's just not LIS school faculty that do this. And when you examine the research literature, it was surprising to me that almost half of the articles published in LIS journals are conducted by professional librarians. I thought about this. Why is that so? Well, number one reason probably is that there's so many of professional librarians as compared to faculty. But it also tells you that they're doing this for a reason, that maybe research is important or required of their jobs. And so you see an extensive amount of research published by professional librarians. And about 10% of the articles in that one study that was done in 2000 found out that it was a mix of 10% of articles was by a mixed research teams of both academics and practitioners. And if you look at the type of librarians that actually do research, unsurprisingly, it's those that work in academic research libraries as opposed to the public sphere. So why do they conduct research? Why do librarians conduct research? Primarily three reasons: for quality assurance, performance evaluation purposes. So they want to figure out what's working well in practice and do studies to inform the future, to change services, to improve resources, to better serve users. Often, it's a requirement of professional librarians. If they work in an academic institution, often they're part of the tenure and promotion process and need to publish a certain amount of material in order to maintain their job and their employment status. And several library accreditation bodies require evidence-based decision-making. So it's required that the people that work in these organizations conduct research. And also, and not lastly, personal fulfillment or growth. If you want to become an expert in your area, whether it be archives or maps or GIS data, you want to do research in that domain and become known for those skills. And it's also for career promotion. If you look at many senior librarian positions, there's always a line or two in the job profile that some research experience preferred. So these are the three primary reasons that librarians do research in libraries. And what type of research activities do they do? A couple studies have pointed out that unfortunately, most of the research activities are not conducting research as opposed to consuming research. So you find that most librarians, when they respond to surveys about the research activities that they do, actually go out and read information or interpret the research that's been printed or published, as opposed to conducting it themselves. A recent study by Liu indicates that the most popular data collection method is survey-based, which makes sense, as opposed to experimental research. If you think about libraries, you know, they're context-based. It's hard to do studies where you want to control variables and run experiments. It's more, in this situation, applied to gathering information from users or librarians in practice. So the survey instrument tends to be most popular. So what about the future of library research? Well, my examination of the literature, I found out that it's uncertain. Some reports indicate that there's going to be a significant shift and that more and more librarians are going to do research. And this is from the CARL, or the Canadian Association of Research Libraries. But then again, you look at other articles, example from Dunn in 2013 from the Chronicles of Higher Education, indicating that many librarians' roles no longer are deemed as a tenure and promotion position. Therefore, they're treated more as staff and are not required to do research anymore. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out in the future, because the literature reports conflicting ideas on this topic. So I talked to you just now on giving you some background about conducting research on libraries. I want to spend a few minutes before I talk about my own experiences about the factors and challenges that librarians experience when they conduct research in the field. So if you want a great paper, I would recommend the one by Kennedy and Braccolini. It's from College and Research Library, 2012. They did an excellent review of the literature on this topic about the factors that inhibit or promote librarians doing their research. What I found when I read that article, first of all, I thought it was a great article because it listed all the factors for me, but I've noticed that these problems are not new. They're systemic. And it kind of saddened me to read that we have this problem dated from many, many years prior to today, that nothing's really changed. So what are we going to do? Is it time to break the cycle and help librarians actually overcome the barriers that they find in their workplace? So the number one complaint, and I have to say that I hear this myself as being a faculty member in residence, is the time to do research. Most librarians are swamped. They have there's reduced workforce. They have more and more responsibilities with less resources to do them, and they don't have the luxury of time to actually carry out a research project. Only a minority of libraries, 39%, actually provide release time for librarians' research. Lack of motivation, and I've heard this again from people at McMaster Library when I talk to them, that they tell me, well, why should I do this project? Like, I don't really need it for career advancement. It would be a nice to have. So if I don't really need it for my job, why do it? So there's that mentality. And also the lack of research, culture, support, and infrastructure. This is the library's role, that they need to provide librarians with the mechanism. So seed funding for research, the ability to go to workshops, to brush up on research skills, time off to do research projects, maybe creating a culture where librarians are required regularly, maybe at lunch and learns, to come and talk about research. So the library itself needs to play a role, and if librarians are not working at libraries that provide the structure, they're less able and apt to do research themselves. Another big factor is lack of research skills or unfamiliarity with the research process. And I have to say, I've seen evidence of this as well, where librarians recognize that they don't have the skill set currently to do a real in-depth research projects that a faculty member may want to do. Not all of them have this problem, but some do. And we sort of look at the reasons why. Is it because of the LIS programs that they're graduating from? Not all LIS programs have strong research methods components. If they do, it may be one course. And it may not give the students ample opportunity to actually walk away with the skills they need. Can they do any data analysis? Can they think of a research methodology that fits their problem statement? And these skills actually come after many years of training. We look at doctoral programs. It's not just a one-course thing. It's many courses with a real project that students are required to do in order to learn these skills. So it's hard-pressed to blame librarians for not having all the skills that they need, but we should acknowledge that maybe one area that we can actually improve in is offering more research-based courses to the students in LIS programs. Perhaps libraries themselves need to actually train librarians in research skills and acknowledge that where would they get this knowledge? You're not born with research skills. You need to be able to learn the trade. And also we need to motivate librarians themselves that they actually want to learn this type of skill and obtain it. So we see reports in the literature about the role of LIS schools delivering research methods courses. In the literature, when you read on this topic, they do list benefits of having those courses. But what I found a surprising finding in the study by Liu in 2011 where no statistically significant relationships occurred. Let me go back. Relationships occurred between taking a research methods course and a librarian's research involvement. So you have librarians out there that do a lot of research, and they may not have necessarily taken any research methods course in LIS schools. So it tells me motivation is a large factor, and also tells me what is really the critical role of those courses, or are they doing a good job at teaching professional librarians research skills. Lack of confidence is a significant predictor of a librarian's ability to conduct research in the future and disseminate results. So that's the crux of the matter according to the study by Kennedy and Braccolini. Confidence. Confidence. If people have confidence, they're more inclined to do it, whether they were given formal education in their LIS programs or had a lot of workshops offered by their libraries. Then the significant predictor is confidence. So the question is, how can we actually increase the confidence of librarians to conduct research? There's many ways we can do this. We can do it formally through MLS programs, but what I'm seeing now is a slight trend in offering workshops or summer institutes for continuing education for librarians to conduct research, and probably that's a better way to go. Now there's a slew of recent case studies. I'm not going to go into all the factors of these individual studies, but what I've done is I've examined these studies and read about them and noted some commonalities between all these case studies. Now, some were done with face-to-face interviews, others were done with web surveys, but they're really rich, and I encourage people to read these papers if you're so inclined, and I can forward you the list of references if you so choose. But what I found from reading this material is that those barriers that I had mentioned earlier do exist. The number one barriers for librarians to conduct research are lack of time, the lack of research support in the library itself, and their own lack of confidence and skills that they have. So these are the major three criteria that are preventing people from doing research. Having said that, most librarians want to increase their research skills. It's not that they don't want to do this stuff. They recognize they don't have the confidence or the skills, or the library itself is not providing the infrastructure and culture. And so according to a study by Alvin Schrader et al. In 2012, he identifies in his case study report several things that, or wishes that librarians have to increase their research skills. So I found it an interesting list. If you look at the ones that are at the beginning, they're more technical. It's like how to analyze data, whether it's qualitative or quantitative data, how to use SPSS, QSR, and Vivo to actually do the nuts and bolts of research analysis. And the second one, in order of priority, would be how to choose the research methodology. Again, matching the methodology with the research questions. Is it a qualitative study, or is it going to be more of a deductive quantitative analysis? The latter priority areas deal more with things, I call them second order. They're more things about writing for research grants, writing grant proposals, how to write up results from a study into a journal article. So they also need help with this. Of great interest, I found, in looking at those case studies, is that librarians suggest and state that they prefer in-person workshops and seminars, one-on-one consultation, such as mentoring and coaching, and reading as mechanisms to increase their research skills and confidence. To me, this is good news, because as my role as a faculty member in residence, that's my role, is to be a mentor or coach to librarians in the workplace. They mentioned that they want to have in-person workshops and seminars, and I see a trend in this in terms of those summer institutes being available. And also, they want to have hands-on sessions with projects and development. So they don't want to do some work that you take in a course that involves fake data and can't be applied to their jobs. They really want realistic projects where they can experiment with the data themselves, and it has meaningful results that they can apply to their work settings. They also want access to expert guidance. That would be like faculty members or access to mentors in the workplace who have done research. They want those workshops. And they want guidance and resources available at critical points in the research process. It reminds me, when I read that sentence, of the things we read in the information literacy instruction literature, where students want help finding information at the critical point of when they need it. Well, it's the same thing with librarians when they do research. They want help with research at the critical point when they need it. And that's what I found in my role as faculty member in residence, is I'm around. So people actually come to my office and say, okay, I'm rolling out the survey tomorrow. Can you have a look at the survey questions? Or can you help me with Excel? I need to crank out some numbers for a presentation tomorrow. It's always this just-in-time stuff. And I think, well, if I wasn't here, what would you do? And so probably nothing, but it's good to have an expert around whose purpose is just to help field these questions. Collaborating with others on research projects leads to increases in librarians' motivation to do research, experience with research, and confidence. So this is all about collaboration. There's so much benefits from collaboration. It would make research more fun if you didn't have to do it alone. It would actually help you reduce your anxiety about conducting research if you could collaborate with others that have the research skills that you lack. So if you don't know how to analyze data, but you actually have access to resources or subject knowledge to people, that could be your value add to the project. It also could reduce the amount of time you need to conduct research. If you only had to do a portion, if you had a team of people that you collaborated with on a single research project, this would be quite beneficial. And the meta-analysis of those case studies also shows that the library plays a strong role in creating a research infrastructure. So it's imperative that that culture exists, that there's time for librarians to do research, that they have funds for seed projects, that they can go to workshops and get the skills that they need, or they can have a faculty member in residence housed physically in the library in an office to help people do research. It's an enabler. I do want to mention 2 workshops. I've been talking about these continuing ed workshops that exist for librarians. And these are recent initiatives. There's one in the U.S. that's starting up next year, and there's one in Canada run by Carl, the Librarians Research Institute. So I'm just pointing these out for you. The one in the U.S. is called the Institute for Research Design and Librarianship. It's a 10-day summer institute. What I liked about it, when I went to the web page, it lists the goals, increasing the confidence. I was happy to see that, because confidence is that significant predictor that predicts whether a librarian is actually going to conduct research successfully. It's cost-effective and sustainable. That's really good. And attendees must come prepared with a draft research proposal. So that goes, again, or aligns with what the research literature says, that people want to do projects that are real and have real data that they can apply to their job. So it's really important that librarians, when they go to these institutes, actually come with data in hand or a proposal in hand from their workplace. So you can read the rest. I'm just watching the clock here. I want to make sure I cover my other points. But I think it's going to be a fabulous workshop or summer institute. It's funded for 3 years by the IMLS. And we have faculty from Loyola Marymount University and San Jose State who are running this workshop. So the applications are just coming up now in December 2013, and it'll be run in June in LA, approximately 20 people per summer session. And that's the website as it currently stands. So I just want to point out the URL if you're interested, irdonline.org. And the Canadian version of this has actually been running a couple years. The first institute was in 2012 at the University of Windsor, and the second one last year was at the University of Regina in Saskatchewan. And just threw up a couple stats here. Basically, even though it's mainly female librarians, we have a range of skill sets from doing no research to others that go to the institute that are prolific researchers and publish quite a bit. I think it's good to have a mix of skill sets that go to these sessions and not just all exemplary researchers. You want to bring people up. You want them to meet so you have some sort of mentorship going on after the conference. And this is just a paper was actually written on this from Carl, Libraries Research Institute. They talked about the founding principles. At these workshops, you're not going to focus on the deficits. You're not going to say, you don't have these research data analysis skills. You don't have great infrastructure support. You're going to concentrate on motivating people. Oh, you're actually interested in research. Let's get together and build your confidence. So it's a positive, holistic approach as opposed to what you don't have. It's more about you've got some good stuff already. Let's build on that. Develop habits of mind, not skills. So again, not focusing on rudimentary, data analysis skills. It's going to be teaching things like project management, how to publish, how to get grants, how to find collaborators, that type of activity. And the content created and delivered by librarians for librarians. So this is the difference between the Canadian model and the American model. So the American model I just showed you had faculty from universities leading the seminar, as opposed to this one, which is designed by librarians for librarians. So it would be interesting to see the differences that play out in those two models. I think faculty can participate in these activities as well, but we'll see. And a plug for Heidi, because I noticed that you've posted this before. The case is actually going to be run at Brock University in St. Catharines in 2014. And there's going to be a special section in that case program, the Canadian Association for Information Science, where the librarians who went to the Canadian summer workshops can actually present their research ideas. So I think it's a good idea or a good means of having professional librarians present their research results to faculty. So it'd be a nice mix. And I will be in attendance at that venue, and I'll probably be watching this session to see how well they do. So far I've talked about conducting research on libraries and experiences that librarians have conducting research. For the next 15 minutes or so, I want to talk about my own experiences as a faculty member in residence, what I've been doing in terms of promoting research collaborations between the university library and the public library in the city of Hamilton, and then other library-related projects that I'm working on since I've been sitting physically in the university library. So my nutshell comment, overall, I think this role as a faculty member in residence has been excellent in terms of engaging library research. I'm hoping it continues when I'm gone. I'm only there for a year. I don't want to be the only faculty member that's invited. I'm going to promote that they actually recruit and find other people to come in from different departments to carry out this role, because I can see a lot of benefits from the limited time that I'm there already. So what does a faculty member in residence do? Interact with the people that work in the library staff, librarians, senior management. And interact means I talk with them casually, and also I'll be invited to meetings. I've been invited to at least 2 or 3 advisory councils and special projects. I've been taken out for lunch many times. It's just really nice to interact with everyone. I'm a third-party person. I don't have a hidden agenda. I'm just there to be friendly and learn about what they do. And learning, for me, has been a great, valuable experience. Coming from a background where I've had exposure to libraries, I went to an information school for my master's and PhD, and a lot of my friends and colleagues are librarians. But I thought I knew what librarians did, but actually being in one, I was blown away about the services I didn't know existed. I didn't know we had this spectacular archives collection. I didn't know we had the GIS data and these special scanners that they brought in for large maps. And just to be with the people that do these jobs for a living has been an eye-opener for me. And I've been telling senior management, say, hey, look, I've been at this faculty for 12, 13 years. I thought I knew what you did, and I don't. And I'm sure my colleagues don't know anything. So you can stop trying to think of new ways to be successful. You can just tell people what you've been currently doing. So I've been trying to promote marketing of the library as an imperative initiative that they need to go on their strategic objectives, because doing stuff and hoping people recognize what you do isn't enough. You need to tell people. So it's been great for me just to be exposed to these different areas within my own library. So basically, as I'm living there, I identified potential research projects that libraries and librarians can do. And my goal is to find those that are more practice-based, evidence-based research that has a tangible outcome that can improve resources, improve services. When people ask me what an FMIR does, I say I'm a coach, a mentor. I'm here to inspire, to be a sage, to offer advice about research, to get you hooked into research, and think about projects, and to motivate you. So the questions I get is like, well, what is a research project? And I say, well, it could be anything you want. I'm trying to foster a research culture within the library. So my goal working with you may be just to identify a problem area or to point out some good literature that you could read on your topic. You don't actually have to carry out a project. I just want to get them into it. So some people are very tentative. They just don't know what research is, and I'm creating this wide space, talk to me, and we'll sit down, we'll have a coffee, and I'll point out some interesting articles to read, and they'll tell me what they thought about it, as opposed to others who actually have data in hand and want to know how to analyze it better or where to publish it. So it gets the full spectrum. And I'm saying it's okay to be anywhere on that spectrum. Hopefully this is motivating people. So the timeline, this is not something that just came up June 30th and I started July 1st. I actually was in conversations with the McMaster University Librarian over several months, as well as the chief librarian at the public library in Hamilton Public Library, going for lunch, having coffees, and just mulling, because I expressed my offer, where I said, I'm going on research leave, I'm going to be staying in Hamilton for the year, I'd love to do some research in the library, what do you have for me? And so this is how it emerged, very organic. And I have to say the university librarian was pivotal in establishing and promoting this role for me. It was her idea, Vivian Lewis, who thought I should have an official title. I shouldn't just be a faculty member visiting. I should be labeled as a faculty member in residence. And that was a very powerful tool because it legitimized me in everyone's eyes. I got a lot of press within the university. So not only on the library news and the website, I was the whole university. I was on their front page. I had interviews. The university librarian, when I started, had a meet and greet session offering tons of breakfast, food, good turnout, just introducing me. So the welcome was huge, and the official title was great. The promotion of who I was and why libraries need a researcher to sit in residence was communicated. And Vivian also set up many face-to-face meetings for me, and this was pivotal, because if I just showed up and emailed people, I'd like to meet with you. I know you're running the research collections, or you're head of reference, or whatever you do, or head of the library technologies. They wouldn't likely meet with me as quickly had not Vivian sent out the messages for my behalf. So the first month, I was just on this timetable where I'd meet with everyone for a couple hours. And they would actually give me tours of the library, tours of the archives, tours of the maps library and the sciences library, meet all the people. So that was just information overload for me, but it was great. I was invited to, and I still go, to regular manager and staff meetings and just sit there, and I offer suggestions when they ask. I'm trying to be polite, but I'm finding is they see value in me being there and continue to ask me to be invited on more meetings and for my ideas. And Vivian actually accompanied me on tours. She walked me through different levels of the library, different departments, and would introduce me to her staff. So just had great legitimacy. And importantly, I was assigned an office. So I gave up my office for 1 year in the School of Business, and I sit now physically on the 5th floor of the library, which has been great. I actually could do my work at home or anywhere in the world with internet technologies, but being physically situated, I run into people just in the hallways, going for coffee, in the stairwell, and then they look at me, oh, you're Brian, yes, how's it going? It gives me a chance to ask them, oh, I know we talked 2 weeks ago about you doing something with that LibQual data, you know, like, how's it going? You know, and they say, oh yeah, maybe we should set up a meeting. So it's this happen chance stuff that has been great in terms of promoting the research and activities. So again, just to recap, the title of FMIR was invaluable. Having senior level support was pivotal in getting me in there, introducing me. A negative of that was that some librarians viewed me as coming down from the top. It was a top-down approach to doing research, and I was told quite upfront that this is not the way it should be. It should be a grassroots initiative. And I have to say, well, it's not like that. This was a grassroots initiative myself. It just kind of organically formed. I didn't have this idea when I thought about it in March. I was talking to Vivian about it. And so I had to communicate that message that it was not a top-down thing. It was just me offering to do something, and it sort of evolved into this official title. Having a physical office I talked about is really key. I have to say, every barrier that I've read in the literature about confidence, lack of time, infrastructure, true, true, true. I've heard these statements from librarians themselves when I talk to them. This research culture and support within the library is mandatory. I think it's quite critical because I've seen it myself. This is my own observations. I think if anyone wants to do a research project, it has to be fun. So either they have to be intrinsically rewarded. Oh, I love archives. You know, I want to do a project on it. Or you make it fun by it's going to be a group activity. We're going to go present it in Ottawa or whatever it is. You have to have some carrot, some spice to it. And what I find is that I'm providing an objective third-party view on many areas. So I can sort of be like a broker and give my thoughts, and I'm not really representing anyone. I'm not representing senior management. I'm not representing librarians. I'm just a researcher that has ideas. So I'm not a threat. I found that this concept of FMIR and my role in the library had to be constantly reaffirmed. So initially I had this great fanfare and promotion, communication about my position, but over time people would forget and say, what do you do here? What's the research in residence? Like, why are you at this meeting? So I'm continually was explaining what I do. And you have to say that message about 6 or 7 times before it really sinks in. They go, ah, okay, that's what you're doing. Then I would give examples. I'm helping, you know, Gore do this, or helping Sylvia do that. And it's like, this is what I do. And what I'm finding is that small successes reap big rewards. So initially, people would come to me with these ideas. Oh, I'm doing a survey tomorrow. Can you have this looked out? Look it over. And I would actually look it over and make some great comments, I thought. And they say, wow, this is good. And then they would keep coming back. So I'm actually getting repeat visits from people. But you give them a little bit of help, and they see value in that, and that's going to promote throughout the library. And they tell their friends that, you know, if you need help with Excel or Access or something, like, go to Brian. He knows this stuff. I mentioned this before, lots of misconceptions what the role was, that it was coming top down. I had to explain that it wasn't like that, or misspell misconceptions. I'm finding now that there's more projects and opportunities than I can handle, so I actually had to turn research projects away. It's more than one person can do, and so I have to manage my requests carefully, otherwise I'd be doing all this research stuff that other people should be doing. There's a fine line. And also finding that the amount of work involved in conducting research is largely unknown by library personnel. So, for example, they think they can grab some qualitative interview data and just in 2 weeks analyze it and publish it. It's like, you know, make that months or years. You know what I mean? It's just like, it was like, whoa. You know, even getting ethics approval is going to take 3 weeks. You know, you have, like, stop. So just explaining the timelines is a bit of the education I had to give. Part of my role, and what I want deviating now, is this is a large part of what I've been doing since I started, is facilitating research collaborations between the Public Library in Hamilton and McMaster University. So together, McMaster and the Hamilton Public Library have created a document, a process document, and in the how to carry out research collaborations between the two institutions. So we actually have a formal document, and the goals in here are stated as follows: to publish academic quality research that advances librarianship, generate information and analysis that is practical application, so evidence-based stuff, build research skills and capacities to improve research practices within the libraries, and enhance collaborations between the organizations. So this is great to see a formal document signed by both the university librarian and the chief librarian about what are the goals of research collaborations, and also the process. You know, if someone has an idea for a research project between the two institutions, it has to now, there's going to be forms set up and committees that need approval and that sort of thing. So it's good to see this formalized. So for ideas for research projects between the two organizations, how were they actually thought up? To get things going, I organized a Knowledge Cafe back in August 9th. It was a 2-hour workshop where I invited librarians from the Hamilton Public Library and the University Library together. And we had rounds of iteration where each would go to a different table led by an academic facilitator. Heidi was one of the academic facilitators. So we had 5 academics. It was basically organized into topics, collections, user needs. I forget what they all were. But basically people would go around for 20 minutes, talk about that topic, and then go to a different table, and the conversation would continue at each table. From that 2-hour exercise, we generated a lengthy list of project ideas, and these were then vetted. So Heidi went away, and so the next 3 weeks, they were vetted by the senior management teams at both libraries, and we whittled it down to a list of 9 projects, and we also came up with a process document that I talked about how to identify projects. One of the key stipulations in identifying projects was that there's going to be some role for me, that I was going to do some sort of meta-analysis of the research projects carried out between the two organizations. So I was happy to see that. Here are the projects that were identified between the two groups. I've categorized them in certain areas: libraries and staff projects. So this is a digital literacy skills development of librarians and library staff. This is a project that the Hamilton Public Library really wants to do. It's giving librarians iPads or smart devices for personal use, with the idea that they would informally learn about the technology because they're doing it for themselves, and they would bring that knowledge back to the workplace. The staff exchanges is self-explanatory. Library customer projects, doing some sort of user physical library spaces, seat sweeping, observing people in the library, see how they do it. Usability issues with the library websites, and user satisfaction, looking at a counting opinion survey about how they like the catalog and that sort of thing. And then the Hamilton Community Projects. The digital storytelling projects is really fascinating. It's a project that has 3 organizations, the 2 libraries, plus the city of Hamilton. So the city of Hamilton has identified a list of cultural icons in the city of Hamilton, famous places, famous people, that sort of thing. And what they want to do is record citizen stories about those icons and record them digitally through audio, video, and house them in some sort of repository, and then have a display in the library, like an LED display where people can actually touch it and hear the stories. And the idea also is that the two libraries would add archival material to the stories. So if they were talking about a physical building, they could actually show maps from our archives or maps collections and do some sort of like Google search experience, Google Maps experience, where people could actually see how that building looked in 1840, in 1870, 1910. So it's a really rich project that has good collaborations between 3 institutions. And the Media Makerspace is another project. The public library wants to create a lab that the public can use to create content. Like people would bring in their wedding pictures, and the media space would allow them to create a photo album digitally that they could send out. So this is the type of project that we identified that both institutions were interested in. As you can see, that's a lot of projects to do. I had to whittle them down. So the ones that I picked for myself were the digital literacy skills ones. That's ones with the iPads given to librarians to take home, and then the digital story project. Just to give you an update, in terms of this one, I'm basically now going out looking at the literature to find out what other people, academics, have done in terms of this type of studying. So I'm looking at the informal learning literature right now about how people can learn by not knowing they're learning and like playing with technology and learning the skills. It's kind of a bit of a reverse engineer project because the Hamilton Public Library wants to actually roll out the iPads and smart devices in January. And I don't even know what the research questions are yet or the theory. Haven't done the ethics review. Initially, they wanted to do like a pre and post test where they actually, I would interview or survey people or give them a test of their skills, their digital skills prior to getting the devices, and then after 6 months or so, test them again. But I'm saying it's too late to do, like they don't really get the research side. That I've got to have good research questions and got to go through ethics. And if you want to start in January, I don't think it can start to do that type of design. So we may just do a post-analysis, doing interviews after people have used them. It is what it is. This is like research in the field. It's not a PhD dissertation. You just kind of do it given the criteria. This one, the digital storytelling project, we're going to do it anyways, but we've actually applied for a municipal grant and so I helped write part of that grant the last month. And also we're meeting regularly now on a steering committee. My role is more of a project management consultant to help them develop the project charter for the project. And my idea is I want to be involved from the onset, and then even though this project may not be funded till next spring, I think we can do a lot of background work now, and then I can sort of think about research ideas as we go, and then sort of think of what they are, and then actually set them up for success. So I'm really excited about that project as well. And so the rest, we're just going to delegate to other people. It can be other librarians especially. Some have spoken up that they want to do like the physical library seat sweeping study, or others may just sit on the list and get dropped. Or others may be treated just as a quality assurance exercise and not considered a research project. It's just too much for me to do. My idea was I'll do a couple and do them well, and I said I'll continue with them after my residency is over, because some of those projects are going to take years to do. Quickly, about other library projects I'm on. I'm helping do an analysis of the LibQual qualitative comments. So we have 5 years of history of LibQual data that have been run at our institution, and no one's actually looked at them. So what I've done so far is help with develop a code book. I found some theoretical frameworks, develop a code book, and one of the librarians is actually going through. I trained her in NVivo, and as we speak, she's been coding the data, and so I'm going to meet with her next week and see how she's doing. And sort of, we're going to do 1 year for now, and then once we get the code book established, we'll do the 5 years. So I may have to hire a student to help with this, but this is just one project I'm involved with. We want to get some publications out of that as well. I mentioned the digital literacy skills project that I'm working with Heidi and Alexander and some other people from different countries, Australia, Scotland, and the US. Right now, it's just in the proposal stage. We've applied for a grant. But I want to mention that the University Library has been pivotal in helping promote this project. They've offered in-kind support. They know who I am. They know I'm going to do good work. Heidi and I worked with them in the past on the information literacy instruction project. And they've given feedback on our grant proposal as well. So it's good to be with them. And I'm also getting involved in the Ithaca faculty surveys. This is a survey that's rolled out to faculty about perceptions of online education, perceptions of library support. And this is a survey that's been run in the US several times, but it hasn't been run in Canada yet. And currently it's being run in the UK for the first time. So again, I've been delegated as a consultant to this project, so I'm just going to offer advice about how to administer this survey at McMaster. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about. I have a large list of references that I've just recorded primarily for my own use for the future. And we can take the last 10 minutes or so to ask questions about this process or to make clear anything that I said that wasn't clearly explained. I'd love to talk about it some more. Yes?
So, first of all, thank you very much.
No, you're welcome.
You did an excellent job answering a lot of questions that I had when I saw the topic. And I just broadly, the what, the how, the who, even the when and the whether kind of question. But one question that I kept asking, and maybe I'd ask you to just explain maybe in some more detail, is the why, which is to say, why do librarians have to do research? And I know you talk, and I mean that maybe very specifically. I mean, it might be about the definition of research, but you could imagine someone answering this question saying librarians can do evaluation, they can rigorous evaluation, rigorous analysis, rigorous investigations, but not necessarily research. And I think of the parallel of education, where there's not a large community that's advocating that teachers in their practice conduct research.
Right. Okay, well, I mentioned this in my talk. Basically, a lot of librarians, part of their jobs, that they're deemed faculty status, that they're required for tenure and promotion, and to keep their jobs, they have to do some sort of research component. They have to publish. There's also just a culture, especially in academic libraries, where people, if they want to be promoted, that they have to be seen as publishing in the research literature. There's also personal satisfaction for doing research, and just doing more evidence-based decision making. I know you can do a lot of what I mentioned before, like those 9 research projects we identified with the Hamilton Library and McMaster Library. Some of those are going to be turned into QA projects, or they're going to be doing some analysis, but the intent for the output is not a research publication. So you can get around it that way. But some of it inherently, both libraries recognize the value of actually doing formal research and calling it a research project, publishing it in research outlets. And the reasons, again, are personal satisfaction, required of a job, required of accreditation agencies that look at evidence-based decision making.
Maybe to push outside of the box a little bit, is that would you advocate or think that there's a role for the residence position that you had in non-academic libraries?
There could be if they have an interest in research. And for example, the Hamilton Public Library does have an interest in research. Just because I know that the chief librarian he's a graduate of the high school and he's into research, and so you need a champion that would launch it. I would say it'd be easier in an academic setting for research to carry out, but there's no reason why a public library couldn't formally do research projects. Yes, it goes back.
I have a couple of questions. So one of them is related to what Sam already asked. I wonder how much weight, the research part actually carries in librarians' promotion and tenure. I mean, for academic, faculty, we know clearly, that's a very important part. But for librarians, I mean, how much weight it actually carries?
I think it depends on the institution that you're in. Some weight it quite heavily, and others don't. But I just noticed, looking through job profiles of senior library positions that I've seen that pass my way through this search, a lot of them require some sort of research publication record. And so a lot of librarians want to continue doing research, no matter what it is, extensive or not, to show a history of doing that for their own career advancement.
My second question is about this idea of faculty member in residence.
Yes.
It is a very interesting idea, but I wonder, practically, how does it work? Like in your case, I mean, were you given some course release, administrative duty release in your business school, right? So that you have time to work on that.
Yeah, I have a research leave, so.
Okay.
In my institution, you get research leave every 7th year. So
Sabbatical.
sabbatical.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm using. So it was a zero cost to the library, and I recognized that was an important factor for me doing it, because I couldn't do all this and still do my normal faculty obligation. So what I'm hoping is that the library will promote this position and advertise for it internally to other professors on campus who are coming up for a research leave or sabbatical in 2014, 15, and 13.
We could also take out the form like one faculty member can be affiliated in certain role, in a different academic unit.
Oh,
Something
definitely,
like that, right?
definitely. It would be more than one. And they can promote it actually, at large. I've seen sometimes a research, sabbatical and promotion, university will advertise faculty wanted to go to New Zealand or South Africa, and then you actually have to apply and send letters of reference and say what you would do at that institution. The same thing could be done at an academic library. I think they could advertise for people. I'm hoping it goes through. It doesn't, die of immediate death on July 1st, 2014, when I'm no longer a resident. Because we have a trader in residence at our School of Business. A lot of humanities departments have a writer in residence. I don't think that the concept of residency is foreign. I think it's a proven model. I just think it's time for librarians to take that model and run with it. It's been successful for me.
Yeah, my question actually is about the kinds of research in terms of libraries that tend to do, and reading the LIS research, I see a lot of survey-based research, and I wonder if it's because it's perceived as easy to do, because some of the stuff I've read is not very good research, and it's a matter of let's slap out a survey and that'll count as research. When they're not thinking about what kind of questions to ask,
Right.
And then you mentioned also action research, and I picked up on that right away. Is that the kind of research that you're really pushing in terms of, or facilitating, is the kind of action research whereby they are making an improvement to their certain area, or are we looking at broader subjects?
Well, the action research was more a statement for myself.
Okay.
How I wanted to basically observe people in all these research, conducting all these research projects, and actually reflecting upon it, but basically not being a scientist from an objective stare. I'd actually just be part of the research team, living and breathing the research project, making notes as I go, and sort of assessing how things
But I
fare.
wonder if this isn't a great model to be advocating to the librarians in terms of action.
I always thought of it for myself.
No, but I'm
But,
thinking for action research where you're making a difference in the area that you're in, and you're participating as human data collection instrument, whatever, that you're making a difference, and that if that could be a motivation for them, not just for furthering their careers, but making it a better workplace.
And I think I'll use that point. I'm supposed to speak in January to the librarians at MAC. They've asked me to do a training session about what is research and basic research skills that they should have. So I'm going to mention it, actually.
Yeah, I've done it, and it just I find that the participants are so motivated because they're all part of it.
Right. And I'd like to see a broader range of research done than just surveys. I think surveys, my own faculty does a lot of surveys, and they have a time and a place, and they're good, but I'd like to see, a rich set of tools used, not just one hammer, that's constantly being used and done to death and not done well. I think you're very much correct in that certain research problems dictate a certain type of tool.
Right.
A lot of people just use the same tool even though it doesn't really apply. So, yeah, I agree that more than just surveys should be done. But I'll communicate that idea in January. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you.
Yes.
One of the terms that you used that really caught me was the importance of research for informed decision making.
Yeah.
And this kind of dovetails to what Sam was pointing out. He's asking, why do librarians need to do research? Well, it's not just to publish. If you are going to keep up with an institution or an organization that's constantly changing, where the needs of your users are constantly changing, where your role within your parent organization is constantly changing, you have to know how to do research, and you have to know how to do it well, because otherwise you're making decisions based on really bad data. if you don't know how to find the information through, you know, rigorous research, then you're making these decisions based sometimes on gut feeling, which is no way to make a decision in any kind of organization. And really, it kind of supports the idea that all organizations, the people in organizations, should have some basic background in research, especially in an age that's so data-driven, as we are right now.
And to carry on your idea, I think you're right that it's not just about conducting research, but possessing those skills so that you can evaluate research. So you're consuming